Hi friends, still within the overall theme of the hostility of the world to INFJs, I wanted to tackle this question of seduction. And you're going to realize pretty quickly that I'm not necessarily zeroing in here on the topic of romantic seduction or seduction in relationships. I mean, of course, anything that has to do with seduction is connected at some level with everything else that has to do with seduction. But I'm specifically talking about the seduction that seems to me to be characteristic of our modern world. We live in a world that is faster than ever. We live in a world that is desacralized, where the mystical no longer really has a place except as a particular activity among others, rather than something that permeates our lives. Usually by means of religion or by means of yoga or particular spiritual philosophies. But again, we're often, especially in the West, but I think this is progressing everywhere, we are becoming alienated from our spirituality. In any case, there is concomitantly with these various aspects of our modern world, I think the current triumph of seduction. And what I mean by seduction here is something more akin to presenting yourself, introducing yourself, casting an image or a representation of yourself as intrinsically valuable and likely to attract other people or to make other people want to promote you, want to recruit you, want to be with you, want to value you. Okay. And there's something that Gilles Deleuze, the French philosopher Gilles Deleuze said in a video, which I thought was really striking. At first, I didn't completely understand it, but I understand it now. I think he said culture. He was interviewed about, the word culture, right? Culture. And he said, I don't really like culture. And at first it might seem contradictory. You're a philosopher, you go to art exhibitions, you live in Paris and you don't like culture, or you're trying to be needlessly contrarian. But then he explains, he says, nowadays in our world today, culture is very much about seduction. It's not so much about enjoying something, an encounter with a work of art or an encounter with a particular experience. It's often much more mediated through our rendition of what that experience was like for us or meant to us to other people. So there's a focus with this idea of culture on being cultured and on communicating our interaction with the world of the cultural to other people in such a way as to kind of value us as people who know how to be cultural or who are cultivated, cultured people, and who hold this value, who cast an image or representation of ourselves as having that value. And I just think that's not something that INFJs are good at, even when they are, as they often are, deeply immersed within what you might call culture, within particular topics that they're very good at. It could be, in informal settings, it could be in more formal settings, it could be at the workplace, could be elsewhere, it could be at festivals, at a cultural event, with friends, with acquaintances, wherever it might be. There's a sense in which INFJs are not very good at advertising themselves. And that's part of the seduction process. Often that takes place subconsciously. I'm not saying that every person of every type except INFJs is out there to sell themselves and try to seduce everybody. But I just think that at a subconscious level, a lot of people of many types are able to do this better than INFJs. And I think that's because of the particular ways INFJs are constituted, which is something I look at in detail at in the Ecstatic Soul, my first book on the INFJ. You can get it below. INFJs are just not wired to be comfortable in that situation, to cast an image of themselves. I think INFJs dislike it. And it took me a long time to understand why. And I'm still not completely sure that I understand why. But I think I have an idea now. And my idea is that introverted intuition is such a fluid function in some ways. It's funny because often people think that it's extroverted intuition that is very fluid. But I think introverted intuition is, in fact, far more fluid in certain respects. That is to say, it's true that the manifestation of extroverted intuition has fluidity to it in its phenomenology and how it comes across. That's true. But at the same time, extroverted intuition is very comfortable in external reality. and it latches onto objects. Like it tends to move from object to object in a bumpy kind of way, or like it bounces on and off. It does its tricks, if you like acrobatics, but it really is comfortable with the world of objects. And the world of objects, when they are seen as objects, they're also means to ends, referring back to the whole idea of the desacralized world of capitalism and of means end thinking. Extroverted perceivers, including extroverted intuitives, very comfortable with that. And objects don't have a life. Objects by themselves don't have meaning, right? Things and beings have meanings. Objects don't. And objects are not fluid. They're static things. And they're manipulated with virtuosic adroitness, right? And skill by extroverted perceivers. It's normal. It's part of what they do. Introverted intuition is always deeply connected to what's going on in your mind and the interaction between your psychic traits and the primordial archetypes, right? Things that have, symbols that have been aggregating meanings indeed since the dawn of time through the sedimentation of experiences over very, very vast stretches of time. It's a very fluid function. Introverted intuition is a fluid function, which means that introverted intuition is not comfortable with dealing with things and objects as if they are static, which is why it's very fond of metaphor, because metaphor are by definition fluid, fuzzy, they move around. That's what the world of intuition, introverted intuition, is about. That's also the world of archetypes. Archetypes are fluid things. They evolve very slowly, but they are not still. So INFJs are not good at casting an image of themselves, I think, because they believe that at a subconscious level, that once they've represented themselves to others, for others to admire or appreciate or whatever, well, that image, once it's cast, it's fixed. And I think that is experienced as highly inauthentic to the being of an INFJ. They don't like existing in other people's minds as an image. They're far, far, far less comfortable with this idea than other types are, I believe, with the possible exception of INTJs for the NI reason. INTJs have dominant NI, so it must be the same for them. But if you're not comfortable with having a static image of yourself in the minds of other people for them to react to admire, to be seduced by, to like, or whatever, in a sense, you are not good at seduction. Again, seduction in this broad sense. And if you're not good at it, if you're not comfortable with it, again, that's yet another hurdle in your path to a purposeful existence, a meaningful existence, and a rich life that you're happy in the modern world, because the modern world is defined, among other things, by seduction. And by the way, The Infinite Soul, my latest book, discusses INFJs in the modern world and how to, in fact, find meaning, happiness, and purpose. And you can get this book. It's recently out. It's the sequel to The Ecstatic Soul, and it's available below. Okay. And don't forget that my Patreon page is also linked below. For anywhere, from €3 a month, you can support me to keep my channel going. It's always deeply appreciated, and it really, really helps me. So I ask you to consider it. Okay, guys, I will see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.